Hey guys, welcome to Quinian's Budget Crafts. Okay, and now you're going to pull your hair out. I could have cut that entire last section and pretended I meant to do it like this all along, but nope. I want to show you that even after you're basically done, if you don't like it, don't keep it. Cut that part off and do something else. After looking at it, I noticed that the door frame looked really out of place, and I just didn't like it. And I'd prefer if the door could be open for tactical playability. So I grabbed a couple of these square dowels that look about right for timbers, ripped off the door, and cut out a spot to put the timbers. It really helps when cutting the siding to put a block of wood behind it so you have something to press against that's not your fingers. And now that the door is going to be able to open, the inside has to look good too. So trim all that window stuff as close to the edge as you think you can get away with. Paint over the damage done, and frame out the windows the same as you did on the outside. Except in this case, I also thought the windows were recessed a little bit much. So in order to fix that and to get the siding flat, I just mashed the windows into the foam until they went in there, and then put the framing on top of the edges. Now measure, cut out, and glue those timbers in place. Then add a little stick along the bottom for a full door frame. A drop of super glue will hold it here just fine. The doors also need a handle on both sides now, so get rid of the old glue blob mess and remove the old handles. Take one of those posts with a loop on it and bend the wire over into a second loop right next to the first one. I like these little jewelry pliers for that because the jaws are round and tapered so I can get whatever size loop I need. Then just snip off the excess wire and there you go. Get something like this. Now just shove that through the door and add a dot of super glue. Okay, so if you want this door to open, it's going to need some hinges. That pack of finding also has these tiny little barrels in it too. Put a little dot of the gel type super glue on the thickest part of the door, and then put the barrel on top of that. If it squished out some glue on the sides, use a stick or something to bring it up so it's flat. The gel takes a little bit of time to dry, so you have some time to make sure that they're lined up and you can see through both of them. Adjust them if you need to. See, now you need somewhere to put your hinge post, or pin. Just poke a little hole in the bottom of the frame with a pin drill, or the tip of your X-Acto. The other pins in that pack have a nail head on them, so we'll use those for our hinge pin. It'll go up through the bottom of the frame, through the barrels, and be glued to the back of the top of the frame. Unless you undersize the door by a lot, or make a recess into the frame, those barrels will take up too much room. So just give them a little thump to squash them some. Not totally flat, but as long as the pin still fits in, it'll be fine. With the quick test fit, we can see that the door is about a half a stick too wide. So just trim that much off, and then bevel the edge of the crossboard like this so that it doesn't hit the door frame. You'll need to do that for both doors, and then repaint the edge. So now that they actually fit, go ahead and drop a little dot of glue on the top to stick that pin in place. A little baking soda on that glue will make it freeze up in just a few seconds. Now we have doors that actually open. And they just friction fit into place to stay closed. The roof bit should be dry now. So just glue along the top edge and put the mat in, making sure it's the right one for the chimney notch. Let that cure, lift it up and put more glue down. Repeat as needed. You'll want to push the sticks against the mat from underneath. Make sure to stick the mat down along the roof edge too. If you didn't get the corner trimmed enough and have this issue, just lift it up, trim that off, put more glue down, stick it, it'll be fine. And then you stick the other side down the same way. For the ridge cap, take your other strip, put a ruler on it where you want the fold to be, push hard with the ruler while bringing the rest of the mat over to fold it up. That'll make a nice stiff crease for you. Then just glue those folds down. Glue this piece to the very peak of the roof the same as you did the other two pieces. I did have some trouble getting it to stay. You just have to hold it down for a little bit. For the other roof, cut out some cardboard panels. I used really thin cardboard like the one from the treasure piles video. Just hold the house upside down against the cardboard and trace out the roof. Cut that out and stick it on just enough to hold it while you trim the edges. When you've got it to the size you want, take it off and use it as a guide for the other panel. The other panel is going to have the chimney in the way, so you'll need to trace the chimney onto it and cut that out so you have a section for it to slot over the chimney. Alright, so do that same thing for the other two panels, but there's no chimney in the way this time. Use the glue gun to melt the glue blob on the peak there. Add a little bit to the beam and stick the panel on. Go over the beam panel meeting point and add more glue. Do this to all of them and then add a little glue to the seam and wipe off any excess. I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but Blackmagic Craft used some paper egg crates for stone walls and they came out awesome. So I adapted his method for shingles. Just cut all the little cups out, and then cut along each of the little creases in the cup to make 8 wedges, then cut those wedges into some sort of tombstone shape. I'm pretty sure Michaels or Hobby Lobby sells a tombstone paper punch that might work well here if you'd rather try and go that route. These crates have 2 sides, a texture side and a smooth side. I'll be using the textured side. So just cut out about 50 billion of these. And go ahead and paint the wood on the house while you have easy access. Same attachment method as the fireplace. Just put down tacky glue and start layering shingles, starting at the bottom. With each new row, put a little bit of that glue on the previous row of shingles so that they'll all stick together in one big thing. Just keep going until you have something kind of like this. Take a little pair of nail scissors and trim along the seam area to get any of those wild ones you had sticking out. And any other shingles that might seem kind of goofy, you can give them a little trim too. Just go ahead and do that on all 4 panels, basically ignoring the chimney. Alright, now you have some seams to hide. Just take some shingles and fold them in half. Then put a generous blob of glue on there and mash them down on the seam, starting at the bottom, working your way to the top. For the seams around the fireplace, do the same thing, but bend them the other direction. You may want to use a stylus or some other pokey tool to help you push them into the corner at 90 degrees. For the very back of the fireplace, we'll use 2 very long shingles. Just wet the end of it so you can bend it around the corner. Repeatedly mashing and smearing it with your pokey tool like you're trying to work clay will get it to take the form of the corner eventually. On the very top, just use an egg cup trimmed down to about half the height that it was. Get it good and drenched with water or water mixed with glue. Add even more glue and mash it on until it fits right, and then just cover the whole thing with more glue and a wet brush. That thing is going to take a long time to dry. So, back to those lights. The only place you need to worry about is the switch part itself. Everything else is free game for putting glue on. So put a whole ton of hot glue in there and smash it in as hard as you possibly can to make it fit in that hole. The foam will try to spring it back. So just hold it until the glue sets. You can also add more around the rim if you need to. To put the logs in, just stick them on the end of your X-Acto, add a little hot glue and stick them down. The back log is easy enough. I know it just goes right against the bulb, but for the others, turn the light on and dry fit the logs first to see if that's where you want them. Ideally, you want as much light coming out as possible without showing the bulb itself. There you go. I just went with a classic Z shape. Notice the reflection from the Mod Podge gloss coat? Now just do the same thing in the other house. And here's how they look when there's not a spotlight on. You can kinda see through the window, so let's have a peek through the door. It's pretty dark in there. Let's fix that. Get another tea light. Now real quick, if you look, you'll see that without the diffuser, it's almost a flashlight, and that's not the look we want. Not in this build anyway. So glue the diffuser back to the bulb. This particular light, also from the dollar store, so I don't know what the difference is, has a slightly different switch that you can flip from the other side, so we don't need to worry about the one that's on the bottom. Just glue the light to the ceiling. Okay, that's much better, but still is not in the right position. Just tilt it so it points at the fireplace so it looks like that's where the light's coming from, and then hot glue all over to make it stay there. Now let's have a look. Okay, yeah, that is way better as long as you don't see the bulb up top. Go ahead and paint the ground outside the fireplace if you haven't yet. I used burnt umber here, and I also cleaned up the edges with that while I was at it. Then take some true black and cover up all the sides. For the ground, I put down a bunch of glue and green scrub pad flocking and then covered it in 50/50 water glue and mashed it all down into the glue. Squeeze out any excess. Okay, back to the little guy. I wanted something like clay or terracotta, that kind of look for these tiles. So I'm doing a base coat in ripe tomato. That sort of orange red from the torches video. After a few passes, I decided that it was still too red and mixed in a little gray. If you ended up needing to mix more, just go over the whole roof with the new mix a little bit to blend it all together. Make sure you get up in the cracks when you do this coat. I also had a little trouble with splatter on the chimney and the walls, but it's an easy fix. If you notice any orange spots on yours, don't worry, it'll be fine. Just do some spot treatment with your last dry brush color. And then I used 2 shades of tan for the dry brushing. First one was beige, and then some light mocha. And back over to the buildings. Sorry, I'm all over the place here, mostly because of the drying times. So these things need some walls. I cut them 2 inches tall because that's what the outside walls are. Just cut some planks into it and do a wire brush grain. And don't forget the tops. And then Mod Podge them. Once the black podge is dry, glue them down. I had to trim a little to make them fit right. It's fine, a little touch up on the edge will fix that. Here's a couple barrels from the tavern video. Just a dab of glue and stick them down. Okay, so this house appears to have some goofy little chairs. To make those, just take the end of a large popsicle stick, snip it off, and glue some matchsticks on. Trim the matchsticks to something you like and add 2 more for the front legs. The chair back is wobbly, so just glue a little crossbeam in between them. Pretty simple. For the bed, take some normal size popsicle sticks and hold them where the bed will be. Make a mark and cut it there. If you're putting your head and footboard on the ends, make sure you mark or cut in from the floor just a little bit to allow for the excess room for the crosspiece there. Use that cutoff to make another cutoff, and then using the same measuring method we have been using, just cut out a couple more of them. Then glue it all into a little box. Funny enough, it's nearly the same size as a matchbox, so if you wanted to use a matchbox in your builds, it'd probably work. Now press your box into some foam to get an impression and cut out along the impression. Keep trying to get the foam to fit and trim until it does. Once you get it in there, put it about halfway into the box and glue the underside. That'll give you the mattress sitting in a frame look. While the glue is still hot, go ahead and stick some matchsticks in the corners for the legs. Don't worry about length right now, you can trim that once that glue dries. Add a little bit more glue to the legs to fortify them and let it all dry. Now check level and height, snip the legs as much as you need to get it how you want. For pillows, we'll take a couple small bits of foam, bevel off all 4 edges, maybe the end a little bit. Give it a bit of a squish to make a sort of lumpy pillow shape. For the blanket and sheets, we'll use some tissue. But just set that aside for right now, I nearly got ahead of myself. We've got to paint all this stuff brown first. As for the table and stools, you know how to make those. If not, check out the tavern video. Okay, so for the sheets, mix antique white with 50/50 water glue and saturate the tissue. You can make this as lumpy or neat as you want. Just mush it into place with a brush as you go. Put your pillows on there with a bit more tissue over them and tuck all the wet tissue in around them as best you can. Now you have to let this dry as long as you can stand to, otherwise you're going to end up with a mess here. Take another piece of tissue and fold the ends over to bulk it up. The map here shows the corner as being turned down, so I'll fold it over and pinch. Lay it on the bed and mix up your blanket color of choice with 50/50 water glue. And then repeat the same thing you did for the sheets. Just be careful not to get any of this new color where it doesn't belong. For the edge, it really helps to drag the glue paint out over the edge while it's still sticking out all goofy, and then gently push it into place after it's soaked in for a couple seconds. And there you go, a neat little bed. I just noticed that the grass was looking very, very green, so just a quick dry brush of brown, the little yellow will calm it down. You could also mix in some other flock like sawdust or even Italian seasoning. Glue the furniture down with just a dab on the bottom of the legs. I had a hard time figuring out which table went where, but they're both too big in my opinion. But oh well, it'll be fine. Now that the red roof is dried, it's too dark, so just a bit of gray dry brush to bring up some of the color, and then we can put it all together. Wait, what? It's not fitting. Okay, so yeah, I forgot to account for the floor height and also the wood beam that's in there. Measure from the beam to the bottom of the wall, and then subtract the floor height. Trim the interior walls to fit. You could just take notches out of the edges, but trimming them all flush was easy enough. A little sandpaper, because at this point my blades were getting really dull. And then some touch-up paint and it's all good. Now let's look inside of it with some furniture. What is... okay. Mark the edge of the table where it's sticking out past the door. Pop it out, taking a floor plank with it. No problem, just glue the plank back down. Use the tip of the glue gun to loosen the legs and pop them out, and then trim the table with a saw. You could also pop the inboard out and put it back on the new shorter table. Replace the legs, touch up paint all around, and then glue it back down. And let's have a look. There you go, that looks good now. You could use stuff like this moss from the dollar store to really add some detail, like on the back or climbing the chimney. But I think I've already gone too far here. If you guys want more detailed builds in the future, let me know in the comment section. Okay, one last thing. Doors for the little house. Same method. Lay sticks out, glue on a backer. Just hold it up to the house and trace out the door, and then chop it out with scissors. These ones don't open, so just put it in and glue it from behind. As to the furniture shown in this house, it is already crowded in here. And whichever house this was supposed to be, either the hunter's cabin or the old lady's cabin, it's only meant to hold one person, so I'm going to call this good. The only real difference with the furniture in here is the blanket is a different color, which is burnt umber, and the bed doesn't have any legs. The table was made from the cutoff of that other one. Well, that'll wrap up this build. Again, let me know if you would like detailed stuff or if I should go back to keeping it simple down in the comments. Thank you for watching everyone, and I'll catch you on the next one.